The Rhebok Trail lies in the Golden Gate National Park in the northeast of the Free State province in South Africa. The park gets its name from the brilliant shades of gold that are cast by the sun on the sandstone cliffs. This can be especially beautiful shortly before sunset. The trail takes 2 days to complete. It starts and ends at the Glen Rhebok camp. Halfway there is a stayover at the Rhebok hut. The park's most notable features are its deeply eroded sandstone cliffs and outcrops, especially the Brandwag buttress. The first milestone on day 1 is the top of the Brandwag buttress. The sandstone cliff formations along this section of the trail are probably the most beautiful ones that can be found in the Free State. Here we are taking a short break under a huge overhang. Some team members take this opportunity to show their rock climbing skills. The last part of the ascent to the Brandwag buttress is very steep and requires the usage of chains. On top of the buttress, we are rewarded with a spectacular wide-angle view of the area. What goes up must come down, and this is no exception. Eventually the trail evens out and follows the Boskloof for some distance, leaving the views of Glen Rhebok and the tarred road far behind. The stream has carved its way through the rock, leaving some interesting formations and some lovely rock pools, provided there is enough water. Because we hiked at the end of the dry season, we did not find a pool with enough water to swim. But because the weather was so warm and humid, some people made a conscious effort to use whatever water was available to cool the body down. The vistas of natural grassland, together with the splendor of the surrounding mountains, is a photographic delight. Further on there were more impressive buttresses. The trail eventually descends to and crosses the main road. After that, we were left with a relatively easy walk to the overnight hut. And the first day ends at the Rhebok hut, which has all the basic comforts. Shortly before sunset, we heard thunder and lightning. A little while later, it started raining and it continued through the night.
Alright, let's go inside.
The trail for day 2 starts at the Rhebok hut and ends at the Glen Rhebok camp, where we started on day 1. On this slide, day 2 is shown in blue. And as can be seen on this slide, day 2 is a bit more of a challenge when compared to day 1. I'm sure you can figure out why. We started hiking at 7 o'clock in the morning and were immediately treated to a beautiful sunrise.
So crazy living, life gets hard to do, and I would gladly hit the road, get up and go if I knew that someday it would lead me back to you. That someday it would lead me back to you. That may be all I.
The first part of today's trail consists of a walk along the Rhebok Spruit, which, as you can see, is pretty dry. Negotiating the waterfall in the rainy season can prove to be a tricky affair, in which case it is advisable to make it a joint effort. In our case, the waterfall stood dry and no negotiation was required. Above the falls, the trail starts its long ascent towards Generaalskop. Even without water, some of the tributaries of the Rhebok Spruit provide their own challenges with the necessary ups and downs. The further we got along the Rhebok Spruit, the more impressive the landscape became.
Sunday morning rain is falling and I'm calling out to you, singing someday it'll bring me back to you.
You might be wondering why some mountain slopes are fresh and green and others are dry and brown. The answer is that the green part was subject to fire during the winter and the brown part was not. Here on this slope you can clearly see where the fire stopped. The right side was burnt down not too long ago and the left side not. We were still on the ascent to the Generaalskop when some people were running low on water. Despite the lack of flowing water in the Rhebok Spruit, we did manage to find a source of potable water.
Come and rest your bones with me.
That one goes quite
And I never wanna leave. All I
beautiful.
find a way to bring myself back home to see you. Back home. Da 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 da. Ooh.
On the way up we crossed paths with some sheep herders. Listen carefully, some of the sheep were wearing bells. Yes, like the cows in Switzerland.
No matter where you are, no matter how far, don't worry, baby, just call my name.
We are about to circle around the left side of the Generaalskop.
Baby, there ain't no mountain high enough, ain't no valley low enough, ain't no big.
Here is a clear view of the Generaalskop, which is the highest point in the Golden Gate Park. Once the top is reached, you are treated to some magnificent views over the neighboring Lesotho.
I made a vow, I'll be there when you want me some way, somehow. 'Cause you know that there ain't no mountain high enough, there ain't no valley low enough, ain't no river.
Now let's have a look at the path that we have to take. Follow the yellow marker.
Oh, no doubt it.
No wind, no rain, no winter's cold can't stop me, baby.
No, no, baby.
'Cause you are my girl.
What do you think? Looks pretty cool, no? Let's do it.
My love is like down in my heart, although we are miles apart.
If you ever need
This narrow ridge is apparently known as the knee break. On the other side of the ridge, the way down is very steep in places. I think they should have called this the knee break instead of the ridge. The final part of the trail takes you past a nice scenic little dam. And then down a picturesque little kloof. And finally back to the Glenreran camp.
Well, my heart knows me better than I know myself, so I'm gonna let it do all the talking. Came across a place in the middle of nowhere with a big